Hi, and welcome to the words and music of George Benson's new Warner Brothers release, Tenderly. His abilities as a guitarist and vocalist are world-renowned. So is his adeptness at evading musical categories to create a musical genre wholly his own. Nowhere is this more evident than on Tenderly. So sit back and explore with us the making of Tenderly, an album that reflects both the past and the future of George Benson. George will be taking us through each of the 8 new selections. We'll also be hearing from guest musician and pianist extraordinaire McCoy Tyner, as well as producer and longtime collaborator Tommy LiPuma. So, may I suggest you dim the lights just a bit, take the phone off the hook, and join us as we enter the words and music of George Benson, Tenderly.
You don't know what love is until you've learned the meaning of the blues, until you've loved the love you had to lose.
What sparked this album was my wife and I were going to one of the hot spots in New York for jazz, which is the Blue Note. And on the way down, the album with Johnny Hartman came on, and John Coltrane. That album is one of the finest jazz records ever made. But I never realized that it was McCoy playing the piano. And when they finished, they said this was McCoy Tyner on piano. And I said, no, man, he couldn't have been any more than 19 years old when he made this. Was he that good then? Then I got the idea. I said, man, I bet you it would be a very interesting album if we got together, you know.
Do you know how a lost heart feels? The thought of a reminiscing.
McCoy Tyner.
I tell you, when I listened to some of the playbacks, I was amazed. I don't know what it is. There's something about George and I that, you know, we play well together. All I know is there's a rapport there. And I tell you, I didn't realize we had a rapport to it. I mean, I knew I loved this plan, and he loved mine, but I didn't realize that we really have a good rapport. And he's a great guitarist and great singer. It's just amazing.
That cannot live, yet never dies, until you face the dawn with sleepless eyes. You don't know what love is.
I decided to do a ballad. What made it work so well, I think, is that it was the last song of the date. And then I figured, well, nothing's working today, so this probably won't work either. So we put our guards down and we just played it. You don't know what love is. First time down. It was so incredible. The feeling was definitely a jazz feel, what I was looking for in the first place. And I played it for Tommy LiPuma, who produced the Breezin' album and a few other platinum albums that I've had. We've always been successful. When I put on You Don't Know What Love Is, he said, George, this is what you should be doing. This is the kind of music that people have been waiting on, you know?
Do you know how a lost heart feels?
What statement does Tenderly make for George Benson? Producer Tommy LiPuma.
Well, I think it takes in both his guitar and vocal artistry, and, you know, his abilities in this area to the fullest. There were some things that he was able to show you with some of the early albums that he did with Creed and his guitar playing, and then, you know, even some of the first 2 or 3 things, I think, through Weekend in L.A. I mean, you really got a glimpse of just how, you know, monstrous this guy can be on his axe, for one, and also, you know, his abilities to be able to sing.
Until you face the dawn with sleepless eyes, you don't know what love is.
we did some Stella by Starlight. I've always loved the Tower Follow version of that. He's always been one of my favorite guitar players. And it took me a few takes before I could get away from, his version. I was taught by Wes Montgomery, Kenny Burrell, and Jim Hall, and Tal Farlow, and Hank Garland, and the gobs of people who have no big names in this world. I am a conglomeration of all, and I'm not afraid to say it. I went to school with Einstein, so what? And I remember seeing for the first time guitarist George Benson in an article about it. They weren't saying good things about my playing, but I never got past that statement when the guy said, well, the guitarist George Benson. I said, wow, he called me a guitarist, Producer Tommy LiPuma suggested that I do this song. And I said, wow, do you know what you're asking? Because it is such a crazy song, harmonically speaking, It's beautiful the way the melody is written, but these chord changes that must go along with that melody is a lot more than you might imagine if you're not a player. So I knew it would be a great challenge, but I was, I don't run from that. I said, hey, I know I can play it, but I've never played it before, And from opening bell, Ron Carter was on top of it. I like that because it forces me to jump out even on top of that. I think in the whole album, it's probably the most forceful of all the tunes, because it says, I am ready for Freddie. And I was out there, leading that race until McCoy comes in with this incredible solo. And the way that he puts these chord changes together, I've never heard anything like it ever in my life. First time in years I was depending on my hands, again, to a great degree, to make statements on the jazz side. I never really worried about music. I try to keep things in context. But when I went back to jazz to cut an album that said, well, this is a jazz album, that is, I had to really think about that for the first time in years, What does that really mean now, to make a jazz album? And after McCoy fed me a few real interesting lines on the piano, I knew what it was I had to do. I had to, loosen up and call upon things that I know are in there.
producer Tommy LiPuma.
I'd say Stardust is probably one of my most favorite moments from the point of doing the track and realizing that there was something happening there, and then getting that performance that we got on it, which I think was just spectacular.
Soul of Amsterdam.
And now the purple dusk of twilight time steals across the meadows of my heart. High up in the sky, the little stars twine, always reminding me that we're apart. You wander down the lane and far away, leaving me a song that will not die. Love is now the stardust of yesterday, the music of the years gone by. Sometimes I wonder why I spend the lonely night dreaming of a song, the melody haunts my reverie.
I like to do something different that makes it stand out, that at least makes it a little more special. Although I knew better than to try to change what is already a classic. And I think in the first half of that, we did that. We laid down the law, so to speak, I call it, And then in the second half, I said, well, let me try to bring it to life in case they've gone to sleep by this point. Let me bring them back, So I added a few inflections that, for me, worked.
That was long ago. Now my consolation is in the stardust of a song beside a garden wall where stars are bright. You are in my arms. The nightingale tells its fairy tale of paradise where roses bloom. Though I dream in vain, in my heart it will remain. My stardust melody, the memory of love's refrain.
We'll return to the words and music of George Benson, Tenderly, in just a moment.
The soul of Amsterdam is truly who I am. My words should convey just what I'm feeling, and I hope you realize what's in your ears and in your eyes. Oh, your heart should feel the vibe. Andreas keeps soul alive. Baby, he's trying to show you that he loves you. Baby, he's trying to show you that he cares. Oh, baby, he's trying to show you that he needs you. Baby, he's trying to show you that he cares. So you may not understand what's in the heart of this man. The method to his madness we inspire. Perceptive is he, Andreas Helling for your soulful listening pleasure.
Let's return now to the words and music of George Benson, Tenderly. This next song, At the Mambo Inn, came to George from an interesting source.
Great story involved with this song. Years ago, there was a man who was in the radio business, and he was a jazz lover. And he would always try to dream of ways of tricking me into playing jazz music because he loved me as a jazz instrumentalist. And so he would hire me to play at these little crazy little bars way out in the middle of the boondocks somewhere. And he never had the money to pay me. But he loved being around me for some reason or another. And he would always come to my house, and then he started writing songs. He told me about these songs, and I said, well, let me hear some of your stuff sometime. So he brought over a song that he had done with Pat Metheny. And I said, wow, this is a really nice song. He said, well, I wrote the lyrics for it and such and such. Then he said, I wrote the lyrics to the song Mambo Inn. I said, yeah? I said, well, now it's that chance he would have in, getting that out, on a classic like that. And he brought them to my house one day, and he just wrote them out on a little piece of paper, and I started running down the lyric, and I said, wow, this is really good, And he said, well, I'm going to try to get a copyright on it. And he said he talked to someone, and they said they would not even consider. I said, well, now I think what we should do is put it on a record first and let them hear it. And then they could make a decision based on some realities instead of, stabbing in the dark. I'm sure everybody wants to put lyrics to a classic, So in the process, he passed away. He never got a chance to hear us actually put it on records. But I promised him that I would. I think it's going to be a classic.
I know a place built like a bongo drum. When you're inside, you're sure to have some fun. 1, 2, 3, and you will be on the move. Gaiety and laughter will put you in the groove. Just let yourself go, you can be the show. No finer feeling can be yours, I know. So come on, let's all go, and it will be no sin to the mambo wing down there at the Mambo Inn.
For me, it's most important to put out a product that I can be proud of and that makes a musical statement that says, yes, George has grown. To me, it must be a growth, or it must cover an area that I have not covered, and it must do it well.
making each day of the year.
Here, There, and Everywhere was already great. I said, no, I would not want to destroy that, so let me experiment with it. Why don't we do it very legato-y in the beginning, and do it on the real side and romantic, and then go into rhythm with it.
They're running my hands through her hair, both of us thinking how good it can be. Someone is speaking, but she doesn't know he's there. I want her everywhere.
To take a song that people are very familiar with and do it slightly different to build a different kind of interest. I love listening to it. I think it's wonderful the way that it has come out.
Everywhere, knowing that love is to share. Each one believing that love never dies. Watching her eyes and hoping I am always there to be there. And everywhere, here, there, and everywhere.
It all happened, it seems, in a flash. When I started playing that solo to 7-11, my own version, but with a Charlie Christian feel, I'm way beyond anything. It's like I went to sleep and had a dream and did all the things that I imagined.
As I approach the prime of my life, I find I have the time of my life, learning to enjoy at my leisure all the simple pleasures.
That was the hardest tune in the album for me, because after hearing the Tony Bennett version of that, which is probably the one I'm most familiar with, and I love him. You're talking about sincerity. I believe every note he ever sang, 'cause that's just the kind of cat he is. It sounds like he's talking to you, but in a very musical sort of way.
Beautiful girls, walk a little slower when you walk by. Lingering sunsets, stay a little longer with the lonely sea. Children everywhere. When you shoot at bad men, shoot at me. Take me to that strange, enchanted land. Grown-ups seldom understand.
My strength is not when I'm hiding in the background and depending on others to make what I'm doing come alive. I think when they can hear that little fog in my voice, that it becomes more sensual. So I'm always trying to get the vocal up on top, where you can feel, the sincerity, because that's where the sincerity is, right down to that last grit in my throat,
Make my wish come true before the night has flown, and let the music play as long as there's a song to sing. Then I will stay younger than spring.
George Benson's mastery of the instrument is never more obvious than on this, George's first song on record to feature nothing but solo guitar. This is Tenderly.
feel I owe them something. I don't like to sit to look out in an audience and see them sitting there docile. I have to make them move, and I don't care what I have to do that. I have to make this night important and different from the last night. That something is in me from little George Benson, the entertainer, because I used to sing, dance, and play the ukulele, see, same time. And that's what I did in that nightclub, and I have pictures of that, you know. So that's still in me. You talk about that little boy, that's still in me.
George Benson is as close to a Renaissance man as modern music has ever produced, and with Tenderly, George has made perhaps his most significant album ever. Tenderly is more than merely a homage to his own jazz heritage. Tenderly refashions some of the best and most enduring music of our time for the new ears of the 90s. This is, without question, classic jazz at its best. The words and music of George Benson was engineered by Mark Grau, executive producer Larry Butler.